Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's crazy to think I actually have every video for this week already either uploaded or planned out. Realistically, the ones that need to be recorded and uploaded are this one, the weekly Q&A, which I'm recording on the Sunday before. State of the Realm will be Friday into Saturday, and Friday morning I have to do a live letter overview. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all taken care of, and honestly, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, kind of taken care of for the next several weeks. It's crazy to think how awesome it is being organized with the videos and having plans ahead of time, and it's definitely giving me a lot of comfort going into the month of April. That being said, I don't have too much else to talk about on my end. I'm going to be doing some sponsored stuff over on Twitch, and I just finished Final Fantasy IX, so I really got to get Final Fantasies 8 and 9 onto the VOD channel. Just got to remember to do that, and sooner is probably better than later. Final Fantasy X starts this week, and hopefully chat won't make me play too much Blitzball. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. We'll see. But with that, I think we should get into the questions. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. You don't have to support. All my content is available for free here on YouTube, but if you do, I do appreciate you. And of course, we have all the usual sponsored discounts and everything in the description that I have available on the Twitch side of things as well. Anyway, with that, let's get into the Q&A. Question number 1, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Well met, Mr. Happy. Hello, hello. What's your favorite thing that you enjoy doing in Final Fantasy XIV? When I have no other direction and no idea what I want to do on a given day, I honestly do the hunt and Eureka. The old Eureka, not Eureka Orthos. Those activities are just something I can always fall back on. They'll benefit me in some way in the long run, whether it be getting materia for future raid tiers or to sell when a new raid tier comes out from the hunt, or getting more teleport tickets, or getting the hunt seals, which I'll then usually use to buy more materia on top of that. So, and tomes, there's so many rewards from that. And then Eureka is a nice way to just chill, maybe go kill some NMs, hope for a decent drop, maybe just farm some bunnies to get the chests and make a little bit of gil. Just kind of kick back and relax things to do. So yeah, I think those two activities go at the top of my list. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Happy. Hi. First time asker, but long time watcher. Hey, welcome. I'll do my best to keep this relatively short, but I also want to read other people's stances on this topic as well. Well, you might just get some comments on it after I read it out right here. This is something I've been thinking about for a very long time, and the reason I'm even bringing this up is because of the mass closure of live service games these companies make and shut down barely a year or two after release. Keep in mind that's largely mobile games. Some MMOs do that, but they're MMOs that really do nothing to stand out on the market in any noticeable way. Question is, what is your stance on game preservation? For me, I found out about 14 when it was first announced years ago, but at that time in my life, I had no means of playing it. In retrospect, I dodged a bullet on how bad 1.0 is optimized, but it's still an experience I missed out on. No, it's not. No certain project is just rebuilding 1.33 in the sense that you could tour the empty world. I know eventually 14 will be sunsetted, and we will not be able to access the game. So you have one bit of, I guess, how do I want to put it? I guess a bit of relief in that A, they're building the game to be largely able to be soloed through just the MSQ. So that is, something they'll tackle. They are going to eventually tackle the trials that are part of the MSQ. For now, at the very least, we've got almost all the dungeons taken care of. On the flip side of things, the Final Fantasy franchise is one that is very, very important. The reason why 1.0 even became 2.0 was because they didn't want a stain or a blemish on the main numbered series. 11, they've long been considering how to preserve it eternally, and they tried a few things that didn't work and have since continued to update Final Fantasy 11. And 14 will likely receive a lot of the same stuff. So I'm not worried. Even Dragon Quest X has an offline version now, though it doesn't really serve quite the same function as like a preservation. It does kind of act like that in some sense. So I would never have any fear about a game or its story or its world being entirely lost, because I don't think they ever want people to say, well, Final Fantasy XI or Final Fantasy XIV is unplayable and doesn't exist officially anymore. They will have some sort of solution at every point in these games' lifespans, history, and towards the future. I guess the actual question was, though, what is your stance on game preservation? And I think that's not a simple question to answer, because obviously, it's okay if games are preserved, and most games are. A lot of games that are permanently shut down end up having private servers, or their information is even just released onto the web so people can do whatever they want with it. But a lot of the games that are live service that have shut down are games that don't have that kind of legacy that Final Fantasy has, and thus they don't have the demand to preserve them either. So it's just kind of difficult. If anything that was like a major franchise and something that was a major entry in a franchise were to be shut down, and not another run-of-the-mill mobile game that's just using the name, the aesthetic, and the characters that are present in other games to sell a few copies, or an idea that's just completely botched on every conceivable level, Babylon's Fall, then yeah, it's just like, it is what it is. You know, those companies make those decisions. They try going about it in a way that seems modern and efficient and what other people are doing, and without a proper grasp on things or a good plan or good content or good game in the first place, there's nothing you can really do. If they're not preserved, they're not preserved, and kind of just got to accept that. We can't always experience everything as it was meant to be, even if we'd like to. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hashtag Sundays with Mr. Happy. Hey, shout out to Sundays. Here's what's good haps from me and a hello for the bank. When I didn't see the first word being hello, I got a little nervous, but you did it. You did it. Here's my scenario. Oh boy. Yoshi P calls you and says, yo Haps, we love the work you've been putting in and dedication you've shown the game. To show our appreciation, we want you to put together a raid tier using your favorite fights. Only rules that the fights have to currently exist in the game. Order doesn't matter. Okay. So I was worried when I started reading that because you made it seem as if I was going to be in charge of making a raid tier, and that's not a reward. Like, hey, we like what you do. Would you like to work for us and make the content for us? It's like, that sounds great on paper, but I don't know that I'd ever want to do that. I wouldn't want the commitments that come with it compared to what I do with my normal life. So you've removed that. It just has to be my favorite fights. I mean, I'm kind of going through that with the series now. Like, I'm literally doing tier lists on like Thursdays, on most Thursdays, like as we speak. And I made a video on my top 5 raid fights not long ago, so I definitely recommend giving that a watch. But I also would not be able to do this in the first place. I like when my raids are thematic, and I want them to be thematic, and I want them to be connected, and I want them to have some sort of continuity to them. And to just take my favorite fights and make a tier out of them, it's not attractive to me. Like, even if it was like to do it in an Unreal style where it's like, oh, everyone could experience these fights again, I wouldn't want to be A, responsible for that, and B, it wouldn't be something I'd want in the first place. Like, I'd prefer it to just be every fight, that old fight that people couldn't experience on content being brought up, and not like one that I cherry pick. So I don't really have a good answer for this, because I think about it way too in depth, and there's just too many downsides to doing it, I suppose. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Ahoy! Chips. Ahoy. No? Okay. Hope you're doing good. Same to you. I have a rather basic question. Okay. Can you name a favorite job from each role? I think I actually answered this like 3 weeks ago. Obviously, I don't expect you to know every question I've answered over every week. I'm just saying, what was it? Black Mage for caster. I think I fought back and forth between Paladin and Warrior for tank because I play Warrior more, but I like Paladin more. So, you know, I'll just go with Paladin for that. Monk for melee, super easy. Healer right now would be Sage. And then, I said caster. And then Fizz range would be, I think Fizz range is the one I don't remember my answer for. And obviously I've had a few weeks to think about it, but, I don't know. I think it'd probably be Dancer, because Fizz range, I have issues with like all 3 jobs, even if I do play them the most. And as much as I like to love Machinist, I think I'd probably still go Dancer. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Heyo, Happy. Heyo, hope the move is going well and things are playing out smoothly. Yeah, just I'm playing a waiting game at the moment, but yeah, everything's going good. A little bit of background. I was running a dungeon and noticed the ninja was using Doton on the boss. Oh, the classic mistake. I told them in chat that it was a DPS loss and to use Raiton instead. Okay, fair. One of their friends chimed in and told me they could play how they wanted. God, I hate people when they do that. No surprise there, but what caught me off guard was afterward they said I could be banned for saying it if I was reported. I was confused. Simply reading the potencies would tell you that. My question is that a bluff? Yeah, that's people blowing things way out of proportion. If you harass somebody about the decisions they're making, which is like antagonizing them or making fun of them, yes, you know, you could be if it's regarded to as something aggressive. So depending on how you worded it, the answer is a potential yes. But if you just said something like, hey, just so you know, Raiton does more potency on single targets than Doton, or you're not supposed to Doton on bosses, Raiton is more potency. If you just say something like that, no, you're not going to be banned for making a suggestion. And they have made it clear that making suggestions will not get you banned. It's if you go, LOL, dude, don't fucking Doton on the boss. Use Raiton instead. Jesus. God, you'd think you'd learn how to play Ninja before taking it into dungeons. If you say something like that, yeah, no, you could very well get banned. But just being like, hey, just a suggestion or saying something along those lines, no, you're not going to get banned for it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps, how you doing? A little tired, but other than that, I'm doing all right. Thanks. Hope you're doing good, too. Been playing Theater Rhythm so good since it came out. I got everyone's Chapter 3 on Octopath 2, but can't stop playing this damn game. I've played quite a few Final Fantasy games, but not all, so I found quite a few new favorite songs. Nascent Requiem, Their Resting Place, Another Moon, and a few come to mind. What are your personal favorite songs to play? Any of the 11 versions of Battle with Big Bridge? There's like 3 or 4 versions of Man with the Machine Gun. The TTFAC versions, while difficult, are all also fantastic. And the Record Keeper songs, man, it's unfortunate that a lot of people didn't play Record Keeper before it was delisted globally. It's only available in Japan now. The soundtrack of Record Keeper is so good, and I think that finding out people hearing Record Keeper remixes for the first time is a genuine pleasure. So yeah, no, those are some of the big ones, and the DLC song choices have been really good so far. The Nier one is coming out later this week, the Nier Automata one. And so that's, going to have a few bangers, obviously. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the DLC throughout the year. I've got like 170-ish, 180,000-ish Rhythmia, I believe. And I expect that number to more than double over the next several months. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hello. Hope the move is coming along well. Thank you. First off, want to say thank you because to your guide, I managed to get my solo EO clear. You got it before I did. I made the guide and I didn't even finish my solo first. Oh, but congratulations. Glad it was of help. There's a few more things I could have mentioned that might have helped more. Hectize being sound aggro and a few other things. But yeah, I was pretty content with the 1-hour guide that I made. One, what happened to Tiamat after Pagalthon? I don't remember if she went anywhere in particular. She probably went back to Marasidia. I mean, that's where she's from, so her being free just makes the most sense that she would return to Marasidia and is probably hanging out there. It's one of the reasons why I think we're going to go to Marasidia in the next expansion. I think something Void related is going to happen there, and it's going to kind of draw us to Marasidia, and Tiamat will probably be a major player in the next expansion. 2, what affects Limit Break generation in Uwu? Interesting, specifically that encounter. Multiple times my Static and I have run into issues of not having LB3 after Titan. Yeah, that's actually a big problem now. You have to slow down on phases to make sure you get enough LB generation. We've wondered what exactly could cause it. Our prevailing theory is that our warrior using shake on the Ifrit nails that somehow has a weird interaction. Or is the Garuda wild charge not hitting enough people? So keep in mind, in most cases, LB generation is not specific to mechanics like this. There are cases, in fact, the original Ifrit, the nails give limit break, in case you hadn't noticed that. However, it just sounds like you are dealing with fast kill times, which is leaving not enough time for limit break generation. Very normal problem to have in Uwu right now. And also, people aren't getting low enough on health. There are conditions in which the limit break charges, like people falling to critical health and being healed, or being saved solely through the damage reduction from shields and not through otherwise normal damage mitigation. So, yeah, trying to limit the mitigation to be a little bit closer to lethal. You don't want it to be within damage variance range, but you still want it to be a little bit closer. It's a big way of helping that out and just making sure that you don't over-mitigate things. On top of that, just slow down on some of the phases, and that helps as well. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Salutations, Sir Glee. Good day to you, Sir Glee. I like that. Wanted to ask you to give us a brief summary of your experience with all the mainline Final Fantasy games you have played and which ones you enjoyed the most. I do have a tier list for this, but I could probably break it down real quick. Final Fantasy 1, classic through and through, has ups, has downs, but a solid, easy experience. Final Fantasy 2, very selective to how you feel about the progression systems, as well as actually gaining all of your stats. Final Fantasy 3, if you play Pixel Remaster, easy, classic, really, really good history lesson within the Final Fantasy franchise of things that would come later. The 3D version, a god-awful mistake that has some glimpses of those, but is overridden by very weird decisions to make the game more annoying. Final Fantasy 4, tried and true classic, great story, great character progression, really simple and easy to understand and a good beginner. Final Fantasy V, the quintessential example of the job system in the older games. Final Fantasy 3 walked, so Final Fantasy V could run, and every game would go for a sprint after Final Fantasy V as well. Final Fantasy VI, much like Final Fantasy IV, but with a few more ideas, a lot more open-ended stuff than Final Fantasy IV, and my personal favorite. Final Fantasy VII, the game that kind of struck Final Fantasy into the mainstream and became a lot of people's instant favorite and reference for the franchise. While I don't personally have any sort of super positive feelings towards it, especially all these years later, one can't deny its legacy. Final Fantasy VIII, the follow-up to Final Fantasy VII that tried to capture the same essence improvements, but I feel like missed the boat in a few different ways, from gameplay systems to actual story progression. That being said, it has its own ups and downs, and of course a stellar soundtrack. Final Fantasy IX I can't personally stand, but it's a lot of people's favorites, as it is a masterful homage to the previous 8 games that came before it. I only wish I liked some of its characters and gameplay systems more, because if I've been not liking those things, makes it really hard to enjoy other aspects of the game that are faithful to the franchise. Final Fantasy X, the first adventure onto the PlayStation 2. First bit of voice acting means that it's pretty awkward at times, but at the same time, it has a very, very well-paced story, as well as the some of the most notable mini games, some of the most notable music, some of the most notable bosses, and of course, probably one of my favorite turn-based RPG systems overall. Very simple, very basic, but very, very informative to the player. Final Fantasy XI, the first MMO for Final Fantasy, and that is a journey all on its own. It's a bit dated nowadays, but that being said, it is still a piece of history, one that you can still play, purchase, and play through Steam. Final Fantasy XII, try basically like a single-player Final Fantasy XI with a few other changes. Very much a single-player MMO feel, and a continuation of the Ivalice universe from Final Fantasy Tactics. While there are definitely things I can see people not liking, Zodiac Age, the re-release version, is one of my favorite versions of Final Fantasy XII overall, and one of my favorite Final Fantasy games overall. Especially being an MMO player, I get a lot of familiar vibes, and I really, really enjoy playing Zodiac Age. Final Fantasy XIII, a very criticized game, but also a very loved game. Most notably criticized for its more linear nature and less open area style world maps and whatnot. But it has a very different take on the gameplay systems with the paradigm, and less about individual action selection and more about your actual tactics that you take during the fight with regards to what classes you're playing. More advanced stuff can kind of reveal that there's a lot more under the hood that you can do with it, but most of the time it's not really necessary to go down that route. I don't dislike it as much as other people, but it's definitely not up there in my favorites. Final Fantasy XIV, need I say more? Final Fantasy XV, I think a terribly misunderstood title. I think its initial release was fairly disappointing to most, but I highly recommend people check out the updated version, the Royal/Windows edition, potentially with the Ardent DLC, as a lot more things are rounded out. There's a lot more under the hood to that game, again, that I feel like most people won't ever explore or need to explore, which is one of the game's most major weaknesses. But overall, I quite enjoy it, even if its downsides are, pretty noticeable, to say the least. And then 16, I'm looking forward to massively. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Greetings and hello from the Netherlands. Hope all is well. Same to you. Thank you. I've been enjoying your retrospectives on the job and patches and hope you've been enjoying researching and making them. I sure have. That's been a big highlight for me on my weeks. I wanted to ask your opinion on something I've been thinking about, Dragoons. If I'm not mistaken, Dragoon is going to get reworked in 7.0 or 7.x due to several factors such as button bloat. Correct, 7.0. Dragoons are known for their supernatural jumping abilities, but there's one particular thing I feel like is missing. One thing I personally want to see is a ground-targeted jump that deals no damage, used exclusively for mobility, similar to the Ninja's teleport. See, I don't think they'll do this. I think they'll keep repelling not repelling shot. I think they'll keep the backflip, and not make a targeted one. I feel kind of the same way. I would like a targeted jump, but I also, even with the updates they've made to ground targeted stuff, the options they added in Endwalker and stuff they've changed before that, I've always felt kind of just, I'm not a big fan on ground targeted stuff. It still feels a little too clunky to me, but it's what you're saying is something I wouldn't be surprised to see. But what most Dragoons will do now is use the backflip for mobility, and I don't think they want to give them more mobility on top of that. I think jumping to a target and being able to backflip away from a target or in whatever direction is behind you at the moment is something that's probably gonna be the maximum to their mobility, I imagine. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Good morning, Mr. Happy. Good morning. Afternoon for me, but good. Yeah, there you go. Actually, good afternoon for me. Wait, it's good afternoon for you, but it's good afternoon for me right now. So it's morning for you when you... I don't know anymore. Sending gratitude your way and love to the kitties. Yeah, I'm surprised Ivy's not sitting here right now. I'm curious if you have any idea why this game design choice is in place. I never really thought about it till I was doing Mentor Roulette and hit the Chrysalis. We had the unfortunate case of someone DCing in the middle of the fight, which reduced the limit break to 2 bars, which, okay, can work with that. But then they reconnected prior to getting sucked up into the portal, where the general rule of thumb is you have the DPS LB3 for the Ethereal Tear. Obviously, due to the aforementioned DC, we were left without an LB as it reset when the person logged back in. This resulted in a wipe. It's really unfortunate how standard that has become, because you can also just kill the Tear. But most tanks and most people don't know how to actually do that phase. So you very often, the tanks don't even try to do the meteors. Like there's like zero effort made in that regard, because it doesn't have to be a wipe. It was a good sport about it, was still a pain point. Yeah, I think again, it's something technical debt wise. It might be something they did to try to prevent abuse of the limit break, like people deliberately disconnecting. They just did everything imaginable. But yeah, it's something I've always been kind of about as well. It's like, why is this still like this? It honestly is just, it's more annoying than it is anything else. So I couldn't tell you why it's that way. I could only theorize that that's the reason, but it's something I agree doesn't need to be the way that it is anymore. As an aside, I think the best quality of life thing for cats most people need to consider is having an extra litter box. Yes, we have 3 litter boxes and 2 cats. So I very much feel that as well. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Happy. Hi. Hope you're doing well. You too. First time I've ever asked a question. Cool. I was wondering what your thoughts were on coils being such an important part of a Realm Reborn story, but not being attached to any roulettes at all. I think somebody just asked about this, if they could bring them up and make them like Unreals or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that are attached to the story in the world that aren't part of roulettes. You can't, they are actual raid fights. They can't be in a roulette. You just won't clear them. And which then, of course, begs the question, should they make an easy mode for them? No, because you can unsync them now. You don't have... And keep in mind, they're not an important part of a Realm Reborn story as much as they're an important part of 1.0 story. They are the finale of 1.0's story, which is another reason why it's kind of tucked off the side. But because you can unsync them now, there's not really much a reason to do anything with them, I suppose. So... That's my thought. It's just as soon as you learn about them, you go and sync them and do them, and that's it. Yeah, and yeah, I understand that continuity-wise, doing them at the later levels means you miss some dialogue from some of the earlier levels, but that's just how it is. There's not really much to say about it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Greetings and salutations. Same to you. Hope you're having a lovely day. Same to you. I'm done with Final Fantasy IX, so my day's a lot better now. I'm a new raider, and I just started Abysso Savage in PF about 5 weeks ago. Nice. 5 to 7 in under 2 weeks. PA. Oh, nice. You're in phase 2. Nice. That's pretty good progress this late into a tier. My question pertains to consistency and executing mechanics. Do you have any tips for staying focused and minimizing mistakes through the entire prog night? I do have one. Say what you're doing out loud. Verbalize. You don't have to say it into comms. I say it to myself. I don't say it into comms. I just go, I am doing this. This is what I need to be doing. Then that's my biggest thing. And honestly, that's how I learn mechanics too. Going back to several raid tiers, over the last several years, when I need to make sure I understand and that I am not losing focus in a mechanic, I say everything I'm supposed to be doing out loud. If I trip over something, that means that clearly I didn't understand it all the way. And when I'm not raiding, I study the fight and then I say those things out loud again. I say them out loud in terms of like mentally practicing outside of raid. It's what I did for Wormhole in T. I have messed up Wormhole maybe 1 time since my initial time getting to there in Prague, because I sat there and said 1 goes here, 2 goes here, 3 goes here, 4 goes here, 5 goes here, 6 goes here, 7 goes here, 8 goes here. It's why I thought the Omega tier, the full randomness of it, or the Omega protocol, I should say, wasn't a problem. It wasn't difficult. It wasn't like... It just, I didn't dislike it because it was all like a lot of people I've spoken to that dislike how it's all random all the time. And I'm like, good, that means I actually need to pay attention. Unlike, most other mechanics where it's like 1 of 2 results and I don't really have to care either way. I'd much rather have to be like ready to go for any individual thing because it keeps me more engaged than a lot of other mechanics do. So just a different way of thinking, I suppose. But that's the big thing. I speak to myself because it kind of forces me to stay aware. And that's the number 1 tip I have. Hashtag Mondays, Mr. Happy Mondays. I saw the M and I just started filling in. Heyo, Happy. Heyo. Hope you're well. Same to you. What melee jobs would you recommend for someone that mostly plays healer and caster classes? I mean, I guess I could just say samurai, because then you still have cast bars. It's hilarious because samurai has more cast bars than like summoner does nowadays. Definitely samurai. I think that you'll find there's a lot of similar-ish kind of ways of thinking to make sure that you can pull off your Madares and your Higanbanas and all that stuff. So yeah, no, samurai for sure. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're reading this. Afternoon, but getting pretty close to evening. Almost 5 o'clock right now. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. What are your thoughts on the Dynamis server data center and the fact that they're adding 4 more worlds to it? Someone who plays on since November, I can't really see how it's helping. Our queues for everything other than MSQ are abysmal at best, and just about everyone in our FCR server just hops over to Gilgamesh or Cactuar. Yeah, that was the expected result. Dynamis is a for the future investment. Basically, next expansion launch, when everyone's struggling to get on the places people already are, that's where they're going to filter in. And that's going to make it so there's a lot less stress on the other 3 data centers. And then that populates that data center. And then basically the idea is over time, runoff just kind of forces people over there. It is not a short-term investment. Also, adding more servers doesn't reduce the amount of people in like Party Finder or anything like that. Like, yeah, it just opens up more space. So it doesn't help, but it doesn't hurt in any way, if that makes sense. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello, Haps. Hope your days are well. Same to you. I made it to P5 at the end of Sigma. Oh, you're talking about top. I thought we were talking about, like, you know, Abyssos P5. Got to get used to that. Sigma trio and top, but after I gave up a bit because of burnout and the fact that I haven't had fun with any phase of the fight except Final Omega. Top for me is the worst ultimate they made, but it's the only ultimate I haven't finished, so my question is a bit of advice seeking. Is it worth to try again, or should I take a break and put this ultimate behind? So I don't know why those are the only 2 choices. You could take a break and then try again. That's an option, because put this ultimate behind implies not going back to it. You can take a break and then try again, as many people likely are. So yeah, I mean, that would be my advice, if you to take a break and try again later. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Greetings and salutations, sir. Hello. I hope you and yours are doing well. We're doing fine, thank you. My question is more of a, what do you think of this idea? Oh, boy. All right, well, these are sometimes not great, so let's see. Paladin's Goring Blade is to me kind of lackluster, just being a DPS button. I was thinking it would be nifty if it made the enemy hit for a percentage, take a percentage more damage, essentially a party buff. That's a terrible idea, then what do you think might be a good way to spruce up the ability? I don't think that spruces up the ability in any way. You're still going to use it exactly the same. No, okay, so that's not entirely true. Right now, you use Goring Blade. No, actually, it is, because you'd use Goring Blade as your very first GCD after Fight or Flight. So yeah, it would be used pretty much exactly the same and wouldn't in any way increase your interaction with it. But you can't just add a party buff to something and call it spruced up. There needs to be a reason for it. And plenty of jobs have a just DPS ability. In fact, pretty much every job has at least one ability that is its sole purpose is for something along the lines of Goring Blade. So it's not that it's a terrible idea. It's just an idea. Like, you just kind of wish it was that way. And it's not like right or wrong, but it just doesn't do or solve anything at the same time, if that makes sense. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy. What did I just read that you didn't type? You didn't type anything like that. I enjoy your content, and I have a question for you. Thank you, and welcome. Let's see what it is. Would you consider doing a retrospective look back at Rogue Ninja? Yeah. I have a whole series of retrospective jobs. Did you just assume I was going to skip Ninja because it wasn't a 2.0 job? No. Ninja's on the list. That's going up there, for sure. Don't worry. We got it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey. Hello. Hi. Curious to get your thoughts on Geomancer for 7.0. No. So here's the thing. I think it would be dumb for me to completely take it off the table. It's already in the lore. It's already been established. But it is also established as Conjure, basically. Just like a Far East Conjurer. We have seen some Geomancy that is different, thanks to the Swallow's Compass and some of the Four Lords related quests. So we do know there are some other ideas on the table. But I feel like having a job that's been in the lore for 5 years at this point, and then just 6 years in, you know, suddenly deciding that, oh, now we're going to make it a job. They haven't shown any indication that they're going to do that. And this would be the first time they have done that realistically. So I guess the second closest thing would be Machinist, sort of, you know, like Rogue and Ninja are set up in 2.2 for 2.4. And Machinist was built off the idea that they wanted to use the old Musketeers Guild that's in Limsa Lominsa. Musketeer was supposed to be a 1.0 class, and obviously it was canceled. And Machinist, they thought they were going to make it a job off of Musketeer, but decided to do away with classes pretty much altogether at that point. So I just don't see them going back. They could. I think it'd be dumb for me to ever completely write it off, but they've just given me no reason to believe it will happen, should happen, or that I should expect it to happen. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hiya, Haps. Hi. How often do you play 14 when not streaming? Very, very infrequently. I've done so much in Final Fantasy XIV, and I spend most of my time... Well, actually, I mean, anytime I'm making a video that requires footage for 14, there's a good chance I log in and, like, do a few basic things. So I guess it would be more apt to say, like, twice a week at most. outside of like new raid tiers, because like sometimes when a new raid tier is out, I'll stream off, I'll raid off stream just to like warm up and practice and stuff, but very, very infrequently. I'm mostly focused on making YouTube stuff or answering emails or, you know, nowadays, you know, cooking or more recently moving. So yeah, no, it's no more than 2 other days a week other than the days that I stream it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi. Hope you're doing well. Same to you. And a move goes smooth. So far, so good. I see a lot of people criticizing the Endwalker relic steps for being too simple, and I feel I can finally explain how I feel about the lack of job-specific content with role quests taking place of the detailed stories from the job storylines. With that in mind, perhaps in 7.0, the relic step could be tied to job-specific storylines. Too much. The reason they stopped doing job-specific storylines was because the number of jobs keeps increasing. They're not going to now suddenly go back to doing that and tie it to the relic quest altogether, which is also one story that is shared across all the jobs, regardless of the job you're playing. It's essentially tripling, potentially even quadrupling the amount of work that they would have to do and the amount they're doing now, or it being so skin deep or paper thin that it's like nothing. It's like you might as well have not bothered. So that's like one of those dream scenarios, but is not realistic at all to expect. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. I have a couple of questions for you. Don't worry, it's not Blitzball related question. Thanks for the clarification. Now I'm more suspicious, if anything. If they added a mount to ultimates that you could obtain for 99 totems or with a low drop rate, do you think they would increase the amount of players willing to party up? No. It would just mean that the people who are already doing it would just be doing it. So, no. And do you think they'll ever change it that all your Mog Station costumes or quest-related gear would be placed in the armoire? I mean, I don't remember what they said the technical problem with that is. So, if it can't work now, it's something that I'd like to assume could be changed. But if they haven't done it yet, I also will think that there's something fundamentally wrong with like the tags or the code or something that disallows it. So, no. I hate to say it, but no. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. What do you think is more likely? Future expansions beyond 7.0, including potential graphic and engine overhauls, or Final Fantasy 17? More expansions. They have 10 years of plans already. So, yeah, that. The first one. This one was weird because the hashtag was at the end. So I saw the hashtag and read down, and I was like, wait, where is it? And then I looked back up, and I was like, oh, here we go. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. Hope you're doing well. You too. What is your thoughts on the Savage gearing system and how do you think they can improve it? I actually did a whole podcast with Frosty over on Mog Talk and Xeno, where we talked about this in great detail. I think, honestly, the way it is at the start of the first like few weeks is like, it's okay. It's after like 8 weeks where it really starts to rear its ugly head. They could cut down the cost of books. They could take, honestly, the big thing is they need to get rid of the weekly lockout way sooner. They need to make it so that after a little bit of, after just a little bit of time has gone by, you know, a couple months maybe at most, to just unlock it. It doesn't matter at that point. Let people get geared for ultimates or whatever they want to do. It just doesn't matter at that point. So, yeah, unlock the tier sooner and reduce the book cost so you can afford to gear more jobs more easily. And tomes also need to be addressed. But like I said, you should go watch that Mog Talk because Xeno and I, we go pretty ham on that show. It's a good watch. Oh my goodness, this is a block of text. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, hello, howdy, hola, guten tag. Hi. Been a long time viewer since the Realm Reborn days, but a first time asker, so I have the bonus of winning the Golbez trial mount first time. I freaking better. Questions about the 7.0 job rework, specifically and admittedly selfishly about Dragoon. Hey, I just answered a question about this. If I'm not mistaken, when they announced that Ash and Dragoon were next for reworks, they said they'd like to be open about details with the players. So far, we've only heard a similar scope to the 5.1 Ninja rework. Yeah, it's because 7.0 is like 14 months away. They're not going to be sharing details 14 months out. They're going to be sharing, they probably won't hear anything about these until between 6.4 and 6.5, if even then, because they're going to keep most of these details for the eventual job reveal. But you got to remember that when they said the thing that you're saying right now, that was when they were planning on doing it in 6.1? 6.2. They were originally planning on doing it in 6.2 when they said what you're saying. And then they changed it to 7.0. So what they had said was that they were going to be talking about it soon to let everyone know what was going to be happening, and then change when it was going to release altogether. So the soon is now probably a month or two before expansion, and I wouldn't expect any news about it beforehand. I could understand being a little nervous about that, which seems to be the majority of the text that is coming in afterwards, but there's nothing you can do but wait, because they're going to make the decisions they make. They will take the feedback that they get, and they will make adjustments from there, and there's no reason to expect it'll be any different. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello and good day to you. Hello and good day to you. While I agree that there isn't really anything in regards to the Grand Company that I would describe as content, I am nonetheless annoyed that there are 8 ranks above Captain that we can see, but not even remotely obtain. My question is, what would you choose as the requirement for obtaining said ranks? Grand Company seals. That's it. I don't see any reason to do anything else except Grand Company seals or squadrons again. There's no reason, because if there's not a content, like a brand new content being built for it, then just make it what it already was. There's just no point otherwise, in my opinion. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? You doing all right? I've been hearing players say they are uninterested with the rest of 6.0 and plan to let their sub expire and come back in 7.0. Do you have any insight into this train of thought? Yeah, they're not having fun, so they don't want to play till later. That's normal. People have done this every expansion. This isn't new. So that's all it is. It's just like, they're like, I'm not really having fun. Let me not play it and then come back later when there's a bunch of stuff to do all at once. Because at the very least, most people like playing through the story. But they get like a couple hours of that a patch, and then, you know, they move on. Maybe they do the side story stuff, or maybe some tribal quest, or, you know, whatever. They do a few different things, but they, you know, it's nothing crazy. So, yeah, that's it. It's perfectly reasonable. I mean, they can catch any of the other stuff, the 24-mans and like roulettes, or just by queuing in, or maybe right before the expansion comes out. You know, usually people get caught up right before an expansion comes out. They can do it all then. So that's it. They just come back. I mean, I've learned just not to question why people sub or unsub, because it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So, you know, people do what they want to do with their money and with their time. And I respect that. All right, you could probably hear my throat kind of getting dry and a little scratchy. So I'm going to lightning around the rest of these, because I actually feel like I've answered a lot of questions and there's a lot more than I expected. The next one was about Summoner. What are your thoughts on how the job currently plays and where you'd like to see it going forward? I just want to see it get a few more buttons. I love the idea of what it is now, but it's just a little too simple, a little too boring. So I'd like to see it, you know, keep going down this summon a lot of big things route, and just keep adding more things, more buttons, more than 2 buttons per like rotation, I suppose. And yeah, that's what I'd like to see. Then there was one that was, where is this? Ever expand upon the concept of Unreal? I kind of answered a question like that last week, where they can, but they would have to be separate from Unreal. You can't just like replace the extreme Unreals with a completely different content Unreal, because it's just kind of built for that in the first place. Yeah, I mean, I'm always okay with them bringing old content back up to current level. The thing you have to remember is that it's only brought up for a limited amount of time, because they don't want to have to keep re-upping the same thing that they just re-upped, and then they just keep building and building. Oh, now we have the level 90 version. Now we have the level 110 version. Now we have the level 130 version. They don't want to do that. So like you mentioned, how people want to do the old deep dungeons without their level 90 kits, or with their level 90 kits, and not be subjected to the limitations of the era they were made. And yeah, that's fine, but eventually it's going to happen again. Like then another expansion comes out, and now you don't have your level 100 kits. So they can't just update it all to 100 again, and then the same old, and then it just happens over and over again. You know what I mean? So it's one of those novel ideas, but it's an unrealistic to expect idea as well. Built a new PC getting fatal DirectX errors. Well, I'm not really great at tech support. I did it, you know, a decade ago before I did this, but DirectX errors are caused by so many things, usually reinstalling DirectX or running a legacy version that's like an older version like DX9, which is not a good idea anymore. It used to be a good idea to do that when DX11 wasn't working. But if you're on like 12, you could try running 11 perhaps. I mean, it's generally just trying different versions or uninstalling and reinstalling the DirectX you have, or just trying to figure out, sometimes DirectX just doesn't like another software component you're using on your PC, and there's no way for me to know what you're using on your PC that could be getting in the way of DirectX. It's just basic troubleshooting stuff that you just have to kind of go through every single option and see which one ends up working. You know, there's no one answer to that. Let's see. Then we had one. How do you feel about Patchwalker and its Endwalker and its patch content so far in general? Middling, because I wish stuff like the Relic was more involved, but I've really enjoyed the content like Criterion and Deep Dungeon and Ultimates and Savage. Like I've really enjoyed the meat, but it's the desire to do it for months on end or to do any content for months on end that has been lacking. So that's where I'm at. That's why I haven't had any concern, you know, exploring other titles and doing my count ups and catching all these other Square titles and RPGs and whatever else that catches my interest over the last several months, because Endwalker hasn't had like staying power for someone like me. I'm an overconsumer of content, though. I think I'm the most unrealistic kind of subcategory of player to please all the time. So I don't really value that opinion all that much. But that being said, I do think they've gone a little bit too like time conservativeness with some of the stuff that they've done. And I think, yeah, that's actually the last question that I have. A few other comments about stuff. Reason why we don't have percentage item level on ACT, for example, because the game doesn't store that data in any parsable manner, which would mean every player would have to input it manually, which does kind of suck. I guess the only other way would be FF logs pulling from your lodestone, like when you upload, but the lodestone doesn't always upload or update as quick as one would like. So like you'd have to go through an extra step. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are ways to do it, but it's too much of a pain. Like I just wish it was there. It would just make it so much better than it is right now. Some comments regarding AI. Yeah, I had some things to say about that last week. And yeah, it looks like we're good for the most part. But that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. If you have a question, ask it in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and keep an eye out for all the videos hitting this week. We've got some interesting ones, and we've got some of the usual. So enjoy. With that, I'll see you then. Until then, bye-bye.